The little girl stood outside the bakery with empty hands, watching other children carry colorful birthday cakes wrapped in bright ribbons. Her cheeks were dusty, her shoes were worn through, and her smile had long disappeared. Then she quietly whispered the words that would stop one of the richest young men in the city in his tracks: that I had no cake on my birthday. Some moments change a life forever. Some acts of kindness echo louder than wealth, power, or fame. Today's story is about one heartbreaking sentence, one unexpected decision, and one young billionaire who discovered that true success is measured not by money, but by the lives we choose to touch. Before we begin, if you believe kindness can change the world and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Hub for more inspiring stories that warm the heart. The morning sun painted the streets of Ashford City in golden light. Office workers hurried toward towering glass buildings while delivery trucks unloaded expensive goods in front of luxury stores. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but hidden behind the city's polished appearance were people carrying invisible burdens. Among them was 8-year-old Maris, a quiet little girl with bright hazel eyes that still held dreams despite the hardship life had placed upon her shoulders. Maris lived with her grandmother, Alora, inside a tiny rented room above an old repair shop. Years earlier, Maris had lost both parents in a tragic highway accident. Since then, her grandmother had become her entire world. Alora worked whenever she could, sewing clothes late into the night despite painful arthritis that made every stitch hurt. Their meals were simple, their clothes were old, and every coin mattered. Yet every evening Alora reminded Maris that kindness was the only treasure nobody could steal. Only 3 days earlier, Maris had celebrated her birthday. Or at least, the calendar said it was her birthday. There had been no balloons, no presents, no candles, and certainly no cake. Her grandmother had managed to prepare a single bowl of warm vegetable soup and had sung softly while apologizing over and over again. Maris hugged her tightly and smiled, pretending she was happy, because she knew her grandmother's tears hurt more than her empty stomach. Across town, 29-year-old billionaire Kalen Royce prepared for another busy day. Unlike many wealthy executives, Kalen had built his technology company from nothing after years of relentless work. Magazine covers called him a genius. Business channels praised his leadership. Investors admired his vision. Yet behind every expensive suit was a lonely man who rarely smiled. After losing his mother as a teenager, he buried himself in work, believing success would somehow fill the emptiness inside him. It never did. That afternoon, Kalen canceled an important meeting after feeling strangely restless. Instead of riding in the back of his luxury car, he asked his driver to stop near the city's oldest district so he could walk alone. He hoped fresh air would clear his mind. Instead, destiny was quietly waiting around the corner. As he passed a neighborhood bakery, laughter spilled onto the sidewalk. A family emerged carrying a beautiful strawberry birthday cake while a little boy danced excitedly beside them. Kalen smiled briefly before noticing another child standing several feet away. She wasn't staring at the family with jealousy. She simply watched with quiet longing, as though imagining what such happiness might feel like. Without realizing it, Kalen slowed his steps. The baker stepped outside to sweep the entrance and kindly asked the girl if she needed anything. She lowered her eyes and softly answered that she was only looking because she had never had a birthday cake. Then, with heartbreaking honesty, she added, "I had no cake on my birthday." Those simple words struck Kalen harder than any business failure ever had. He remembered standing outside a grocery store years ago after losing his mother, wishing someone would notice how alone he felt. No one had. This time, someone had noticed. Instead of walking away, Kalen entered the bakery and quietly spoke with the owner. Minutes later, employees rushed into action. They baked the largest birthday cake they could prepare quickly, decorating it with colorful flowers, fresh fruit, and glowing candles. But Kalen wasn't finished. He contacted his assistants and instructed them to buy balloons, gifts, warm clothes, books, toys, and enough food to feed dozens of families living nearby. They stared at him in surprise because nothing like this had ever appeared on his schedule before. within 2 hours, the small street transformed into an unforgettable celebration. Neighbors came outside, musicians volunteered to perform, children laughed as colorful balloons floated overhead, and tables overflowed with fresh meals. Maris stood frozen, unable to understand why everyone seemed to be smiling at her. When the enormous birthday cake appeared, she covered her mouth in disbelief, tears rolled down her cheeks before anyone even lit the candles. For the first time in her young life, people gathered not because they pitied her, but because they genuinely wanted to celebrate her existence. As everyone sang happy birthday together, even strangers found themselves wiping away tears, but the greatest gift had nothing to do with cake. After the celebration, Kaylin quietly walked Maris and her grandmother home. Only then did he truly see how difficult their lives had become. Rain leaked through the ceiling. The furniture barely held together. Medicine bottles sat nearly empty on the small table. Elora apologized repeatedly for the condition of their home, embarrassed to welcome such an important guest. Kaylin looked around silently. He suddenly realized that one birthday party could never solve years of hardship. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Maris's smile after blowing out her candles. The next morning he returned with doctors to examine Elora, contractors to repair the apartment, groceries to fill every cupboard, and a social worker to ensure the family received every benefit they legally deserved but had never known how to claim. News of the mysterious billionaire's actions spread rapidly across the city. Some praised him, while others claimed it was only a publicity stunt. Social media exploded with opinions. Reporters tried to interview him, but Kaylin refused every request. He insisted the story belonged to the little girl, not to him. Weeks passed. Maris returned to school wearing clean clothes and carrying brand new books. Her teachers immediately noticed the difference. She smiled more often. She answered questions confidently. Her grades improved dramatically because hunger no longer distracted her from learning. Meanwhile, Elora received proper medical treatment. Although her hands would never fully recover, the pain became manageable, allowing her to enjoy time with her granddaughter instead of spending every waking hour worrying about survival. But something unexpected also happened. Kaylin began changing. Instead of measuring each day by profits and stock prices, he started visiting children's hospitals, community shelters, and struggling neighborhoods. The emptiness inside him slowly faded each time he saw another hopeful smile. His employees noticed their boss becoming warmer and more approachable. The company introduced scholarships for orphan children, emergency housing assistance for struggling families, and education programs across the city. One simple sentence spoken by one little girl had quietly transformed an entire organization. Months later, Maris was invited to speak during the opening ceremony of a new community center funded by Kaylin's foundation. Standing nervously before hundreds of people, she looked at the crowd and smiled. She explained that birthdays are not about expensive presents. They are about knowing someone is happy that you were born. The audience fell completely silent. Many adults lowered their heads because they suddenly realized how often they had overlooked lonely people around them. Even seasoned journalists struggled to hide their emotions. Near the end of the ceremony, Kaylin revealed something nobody expected. Instead of naming the building after himself, he named it the Maris Hope Center, explaining that the greatest teachers are often the smallest. Voices, thunderous applause filled the air. Years passed. Once again, the repaired apartment became a comfortable little home filled with laughter instead of worry. Maris grew into a compassionate young woman who volunteered every weekend helping children from difficult backgrounds. Inspired by everything she had experienced, she chose to study social work so she could become the kind of person who had once changed her own life. Kaylin continued supporting thousands of families without seeking recognition. Awards filled his office shelves, but the framed photograph he treasured most showed a little girl smiling beside her very first birthday cake. Whenever business became stressful, he looked at that picture and remembered what truly mattered. Money could build skyscrapers, kindness could rebuild lives. One sunny afternoon, exactly 10 years after that unforgettable birthday, the Hope Center hosted another celebration. This time, hundreds of children gathered around colorful tables covered with cakes of every flavor imaginable. No child was forgotten. No birthday went unnoticed. As Maris helped a nervous little boy light his candles, she gently reminded him that everyone deserves to feel special at least once a year. Across the room, Kalen watched quietly. He no longer saw himself as the man who had rescued a child. Instead, he understood the truth. That little girl had rescued him from a life where success meant everything except happiness. Before we reach the end of this story, we have one heartfelt request. If this journey has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes compassion still exists, subscribe to Kindness Hub, and let us know in the comments how one act of kindness changed your own life. Your story could inspire someone who desperately needs hope today, and before this story ends, please leave this special comment below. Every child deserves to be celebrated. Together, let's fill the comments section with love and remind the world that no child should ever feel forgotten on their birthday. As the sun slowly set behind the city skyline, children laughed beneath strings of colorful lights while birthday songs echoed through the community center. Maris looked toward the sky, silently thanking her parents, her grandmother, and the stranger who had stopped walking long enough to listen. Sometimes miracles do not arrive with flashing lights or dramatic speeches. Sometimes they begin with a quiet sentence spoken by a forgotten child and a compassionate heart willing to answer it. And that is how one little girl who once had no birthday cake inspired a young billionaire to discover the richest life of all, a life filled with generosity, hope, and love that continued touching countless hearts long after the candles had burned out. If you'd like, I can also